at VUC.me. We could not do this every week without the help of Voxeo Labs. Visit tropo.com, Sangoma.com, makers of some of the finest VoIP hardware you'll ever find. Our hosted PBX by onsip.com. Hardest working guys in VoIP over at e4strategies.com. What would we be without David Frankel and the wideband ZipDX Orchestra, full-featured conference bridge? And thanks to Voxbone, you can call in from 48 cities around the world at local rates to the VUC. Okay, and we are live on YouTube streaming. So if you're listening on the VUC, you can go to youtube.com/live and look up plus real time. This is the VUC. It's rare that we have David Frankel as the main guest. In fact, I think it's never happened. David, thanks for joining us today.
Happy to be here, Andy.
And we will not get into the details of why you can't do a video share, but that's unfortunate. We've been working together for, I believe Michael and I determined it was either 3 or 4 years, going on our 4th year probably. We started in 2009, hence the SIP URI 200901 at login.zipdx.com. Michael, how did you come up with ZipDX, by the way? You guys must have met at a conference or something.
You know, it eludes my memory at the moment.
You remember, David?
I can't recall.
I do not.
We hooked up kind of in a September time frame, and we had an email exchange, and then took some time. And David was good enough to hand out a handful of iBeam client licenses so that a dozen or so people could participate in wideband. And I think it was the first time we had a VUC call that took a lot of coordination in advance, because we were distributing, finding out if folks were going to be able to participate in an appropriate manner. But boy, did that ever take off.
And I think I say this most weeks, you know, we really couldn't do it without, I mean, it would not be the VUC without ZipDX, not only for the quality, but for the features. And we're going to try to walk through a few of those features today. But David, maybe people would be interested in how you even got started in this business in the first place. Would you care to talk about that a little bit?
Oh, certainly. Thanks for that invitation. So I started ZipDX, I think, in about 2007, and really just did it out of my own frustration with existing conference calling systems. I was on conference calls all the time in my previous assignments, and I just found them to be routinely frustrating. My favorite story is about getting in the car. I had a long commute at the time, and I would get in the car, and in the driveway, I'd know that I had a conference call while I was going to be en route. So I'd fish out the right codes, and I'd sit in the driveway, and I'd dial in, and I'd punch in the numbers, and I'd get on the call, and that's great. I'd have my headset on, and I'd start on my commute and get on the freeway, and then my call would be dropped. Well, crap. So dial back in on the phone, and then there's a conference bridge saying, welcome to the conference system. Please enter your code, and, well, that's in the back seat now. So I got to fish that out, and I finally get that typed in, and then it says, after the beep, please say your name. And I'm thinking, I was just here. Why can't you just figure that out and put me back where I belong? And I thought, this stuff is really 20 years old. It's stuck in the 1980s. Nobody's brought it forward into the web world, and that really shouldn't be that hard. And so I embarked on ZipDX, and basically the mission was to try to make conferencing, audio conferencing, a better experience, and that meant fixing these issues with getting onto conference calls to begin with and all the codes baloney and so on. And it also meant doing whatever I could to deal with audio quality. And so from the beginning, we had a commitment to wideband audio as an alternative to narrowband PSTN audio. So that was part of the thesis of the business. And it just sort of took off from there. And although we had a first implementation up and running in a matter of months, the platform has continued to evolve ever since, and we're adding new features certainly monthly, if not weekly, and now have really found our niche in serving clients who have specialized conferencing challenges that they cannot meet with existing commodity conferencing platforms.
Okay, we're going to get Michael to share maybe the console, because a few people have seen this. You need to see it as the administrator. But let me say first, this is something that I'm not using, David, but obviously there are multi-rooms, so you could theoretically have people shunted into a room, interview them, pre-putting them in the main conference room. Am I right about that?
Well, you're absolutely right. We have, again, there are a number of sort of specialty things that we do for our customers. We have customers that are running webcasts, training, focus groups, things like that. And so what usually happens if we have 100 different features, then a given customer might pull together 1 or 2 dozen of those to meet their particular needs. So Michael's showing now what we call our dashboard. The dashboard shows everybody that's in a conference, and it's really meant for a host or a facilitator to use while the meeting is in progress, to give them a sense of what's going on and to let them control various aspects. So with respect to what you're talking about, a number of our customers have big meetings. What they'll do is they'll start initially with all of the participants in a waiting room listening to music, and they may have the panelists or hosts conferring among themselves in sort of a green room and getting ready for the presentation. And then when the meeting starts, they can use this dashboard. There are a set of controls across the top for the host, and they can use the dashboard to bring all the participants into the meeting, and then they can leave them muted so that they can't disturb the meeting in progress. In fact, we have 2 kinds of muting. We have what we call soft lecture, which allows participants to unmute themselves. That's the mode that this conference call is operating in right now. And then we have hard muting, where only the host or a facilitator is able to mute and unmute people. And we can change all those things dynamically. So while the meeting is in progress, again, the facilitator over on the right-hand side, we have what we call an activity box. It shows who's talking or who's making noise. So if there is a problem, if there's some echo or there's some background noise that doesn't belong, the facilitator can just click on somebody. And Michael, if you click on Randy's name, for example, a pop-up will open, and then you get a set of controls for that particular person, and you can mute them, you can disconnect them, and so on.
Wow! You
Randy
can tweak their
mentioned these
volume.
rooms, so down a little bit on the menu there is a selection of rooms. We have 8 different rooms that are available, and if you need to have a private conversation, or if 2 people need to chat before it's their turn to give their part of the presentation, they can step into a sub-conference room, have that conversation separately, and then move back. And again, the host can control all of these things as well. Another thing that we have is an organization that does a bunch of training, and they will split their participants up into little sort of work groups, like you can imagine in a classroom. A set of 3 or 4 people will go off into room 1, somebody else will go off into room 2, and so forth, and they'll confer for 10 or 15 minutes on an assignment. And then up at the top in the rooms menu, one of the options is to pull everybody back into the main conference. So when the facilitator, who may be popping around from room to drop in virtually on the different participants, and then when she's ready to have everybody back, she pulls them back. Right now it's a context-sensitive menu, since we're all in the main conference, there's nothing there under the rooms menu. But if people were to move around, you'd see the display change, and it would show that there are people in the other rooms. We also have a voting feature, so that if people vote on things, it'll pop up a little graph. You can do this by DTMF, so if I type in *22, that'll set my vote to 2. So now we'll see the little menu open, and it'll pop that up. There's a lag on the Google Plus video stream, but there it is now, and you can see under my name.
Enter your vote is set to 3.
Vote to 2.
Sorry about that.
So that's how that can work. Go ahead, Randy.
No, I just voted 3, and I forgot that there was a vocal prompt there. So as you can see on the video there's David voted for 2, I voted for 3, and Miss America is probably 1.
So a variety of things along those lines. We have hand raising, and again, this gets to be important in the big meeting. If somebody presses *1 on their phone, then their hand will go up. We'll see their hand turn blue. If Michael changed
Your hand is now raised. You are number 1.
hand up at the top of the column, then it'll sort that display and bring the raised hands to the top. And again, there's a little bit of a lag, so I can't tell if you've done that yet. But yeah, there we go. So now we see the people with the raised hands, and under normal circumstances, those people would probably be muted, but then we could click on their name, and one of the options at that point is call on. And when you call on someone, the system will automatically unmute them, play an announcement to them, telling them to start speaking, confirm to the host that the participant has been unmuted, and then they're off to the races. And then if you call on the next person, it'll remute the first person and move on to the next. So this is what we call our automated operator, and it really lets people move out of an operator-assisted conference where you have to pay a fortune for somebody standing by to do some of these functions, and you can run it all yourself from this dashboard. So that's sort of a very quick overview. We've got a lot of other features in here to control things like the playing of name announcements and chimes. You can dial out to anywhere in the world if you want to add somebody to the conference. So there's a dial out menu item at the top, and you can type in PSTN numbers all over the world. You can also type in SIP URIs if you want to bring somebody in that way. And our platform is compatible. It'll obviously, on this call, I think everybody is probably SIP connected, but of course a lot of our traffic is PSTN oriented, and you can mix and match. And you can also mix and match wideband, narrowband. In fact, speaking of wideband, the people with the little megaphones next to their names in the dashboard list are the ones that are wideband connected, and the ones that lack that are in narrowband. Maybe one other thing before I pause here is I'll just show you the dashboard shows not only who's present, and it tries to get the best name that it can. Again, in the SIP environment, usually it's using the display name that comes with the SIP invite. But if we're PSTN connected, then we'll use the caller name. We do caller name reverse lookups when people dial into the system, and figure out as best we can who they are, and/or we'll show their PSTN phone number. But another big piece of the system is that you can invite people to conferences by email address. And ZipDX has this whole patented scheme we call identity conferencing that allows the system to know who is supposed to be in a conference. Each one of those invited people can have their own profile. Profile can contain one or more telephone numbers, so you can list your mobile number, your desk number, your home number. And at meeting times, ZipDX, at your option, can call you at one or all of those numbers. You can answer any of them. The call will be announced. You press 1, and you go right into the call. So back to my example of being in the driveway, when you are in your car, for example, and you're supposed to be on a conference call, instead of having to fumble around for a bunch of digits, your phone just rings, you press 1 to acknowledge that call, and you go right into the conference that you're invited to. If you get dropped, you hit redial on your mobile phone, it looks at your caller ID, it knows who you are, it knows what meeting you're supposed to be in, it puts you back in there. Another one of the things that's stored in your profile is your recorded name. So the first time you join a call, you'll have to say your name, but we'll remember that, and then you'll never have to say it again. And in fact, as of last year, we started text-to-speeching your name. So even when you're invited first to a call, you don't have to say your name. We already have an audible rendition of it. Because we know who's supposed to be in the call, back on the dashboard, you may have noticed that at the bottom of the dashboard, after we've shown everybody that's there, we also show who's missing. So if you're running a project meeting and you've invited 9 people, there are 7 people there, you're trying to figure out who's missing, at the bottom of the dashboard, it'll show you the names of the people that aren't there. You see those grayed out at the bottom, and you also see, so some people are listed as invited. That means Randy's included them explicitly, and they don't happen to be here. We also keep track of who joined and then exited, so you can see a little bit of a history as well. So that's kind of a quick whirlwind view of this dashboard and a little bit of how the system works in its basic form. One last point on this, and that is a lot higher conference security when you want it, because you can explicitly invite people. Randy has a code on this call, as he was discussing earlier. 2009-01 is the code to join the call, but I leave on my calls. I don't have a code. The only people that get in are the ones that I've invited. And if you've got a recurring call, you can have, we support calendar integration, and you can have a call every Tuesday morning at 8:30. If one of your salesmen quits, then you just remove them from the invite list, and they can dial in on subsequent Tuesdays, and ZipDX will just tell them you're not invited to anything. So that keeps the people that don't belong out of those calls. I'll take a breath and see if anybody has anything to add or ask.
The elephant in the room wasn't mentioned, which is G722. Or was it?
It wasn't mentioned? All that commentary about wideband and the little megaphones and so on?
The megaphones, yeah, but you didn't really go into why it's so great, did you? I know you have a whole pitch on people with foreign accents.
Well, I assume the people here know and appreciate it. I mean, wideband is great for conferencing. It's great for anything, but it's especially important in conferencing when it comes to recognizing people's voices, when it comes to understanding people with accents. In a lot of cases on a conference call, you're conversing with people that you've never met, that you're not used to. So while I say that I talk to my brother all the time, we're both on mobile phones, it sounds like absolute garbage, but we can have a conversation because we've been finishing each other's sentences for more than 50 years. You get on a conference call and it's a whole different situation, and if you've ever wondered why after a typical conference call of 45 minutes or an hour you're exhausted, it's because your brain has been having to fill in all of the missing audio that's chopped out by G711 narrowband. And you find that when you're on a wideband conference call, it's much less fatiguing, it's much more enjoyable, it's much easier to understand. You don't have to use 30% of your brain power to compensate for the poor audio.
And no one would argue with that here. Go ahead, Michael. I'm sorry.
I'll give you a moment to take a breath, David, and give you some personal experience. That I work for an English firm, as some of you may know. The gentleman I report to presently, I believe he's actually from Liverpool, and we just find that wideband, both for conferencing and for just telephone calls in general, dramatically enhances our ability to avoid misunderstandings. It doesn't.
There we go. Hold on a second, Michael. I was removed, as you probably saw.
Okay.
Now I'm back. So if you could go back to the time when I dropped out.
Yeah. So the use of wideband in this sort of cross-cultural context of I work for some English folks, but I'm here in Texas. It just helps us avoid the understandings that happen as a consequence of, he was on his cell phone on the conference, and it was a bad connection from Vodafone, plus he's got a heavy Liverpool accent, and I just didn't get what he was saying. And it just makes life better all around. And we also, second sort of subsequent story, we also had a member of our sales team depart the company about a month ago, and went through this problem of having to change a bunch of PIN codes on some traditional conference bridges because we didn't want him coming back and having the potential for corporate espionage, learning about our
hand is lowered
strategies. So
yeah, I'm really quite proud of that aspect of our system, in that our what we call identity conferencing is not only secure, it avoids the issue that I raised and that you just echoed about people who leave, and instead of having to change everybody's code, you just remove him. It avoids these problems with back-to-back meetings where you have a 9 o'clock conference call and a 10 o'clock conference call, and at 9:55 the early birds start showing up for the 10 o'clock call, and you have to say, ooh, we're not done yet, hang up, go away, come back in 10 minutes. Very disruptive. So you avoid those problems, and it's a lot more convenient. System calls you at meeting time, boom, you're in the right conference, so it's a win-win in that regard. And then just on this voice quality thing, a number of our customers are trying to run pretty serious meetings, and a lot of people are impacted, and they get concerned about voice quality. And one thing we all know is that mobile phones they're really bad in many cases, both in terms of ongoing audio quality and in terms of connection reliability. And so one of the features, I thought with the hundreds of features we have, we must be almost done. But one of the things we're in the process of adding is we detect when a mobile phone joins a conference, whether they dial in or we dial out, and we play an announcement to that person, letting them know that they're on a mobile phone, and without being too obnoxious, indicating that their voice quality may be a detriment to their participation in the meeting, and also letting them know that if they get disconnected, they're going to have to, dial back in to rejoin.
Question,
trying to nudge people towards a better experience.
How do you detect that the calling party is on a mobile phone?
Well, we have to use several different techniques depending on the exact circumstances. In most other countries, the dialing plan tells you whether it's a mobile or not. There's something in the prefix, the first digits after the country code, that identify it as a mobile. And so for those calls, whether they're inbound, we generally do get inbound caller ID on we have access numbers around the world, and almost all of them deliver pretty reliable caller ID. And obviously, if we're dialing out, we know what number we dialed, and so we can tell from the digits whether it's a mobile. In the United States, it's trickier because we have number portability and all of that junk. So on an outbound call, we have to do a lookup in the number portability database to look at the local routing number and find out who the carrier is and if that's a mobile carrier. Inbound, when people call our toll-free numbers, we get something called ISEP-OLI, and that line indicator tells us whether it's originating from a mobile network.
Anyone else have any questions for David Frankel, CEO of ZipDX, our favorite conference bridge ever?
I have a quick question. So here at Penn State, we use this net meeting for virtual courses offered to all the PhD students across the world, and I didn't see you two talking too much about sharing content. So the way it works on net meeting is there's an instructor who is in one part of the world, and there are students all over. So they should be able to access content. There's a whiteboard and stuff. Is that something available on ZipDX that can be done?
We've done integrations with web conferencing tools. So we have a tool, a very basic screen sharing tool that we integrate in our service offering, and we also have a number of customers that use Adobe Connect, and we've got a partner that's done a very extensive integration with Adobe Connect that gives the host and the participants a number of audio controls integrated right into the Connect meeting room. We've also got customers that use ZipDX in conjunction with WebEx and with NetMeeting. Our expertise, my expertise, is really in the audio realm. So that's the wedge that we bring to a solution like what you're using. But I think certainly in instructional settings, our integration with Adobe Connect is probably the Cadillac of that domain.
Got it.
Although,
and I'll just mention, I did want to mention quickly a couple of the newer things we're working on. One of the things we've been working on since last year is multilingual conference calls. So this does use our Adobe Connect integration. We're doing this in conjunction with the United Nations and the International Telecommunications Union. They operate many of their meetings in 6 languages using simultaneous interpreters. And so what we do is connect ZipDX, a ZipDX conference call, to their auditorium, whatever venue. The meeting is, there's always a physical meeting that's taking place somewhere, and there are a set of delegates there, and there are interpreters there who are interpreting across these 6 languages. But then remote participants can join. They dial in on the phone or get called out to, and they can listen in the language of their choice. And if they want to speak, they can speak in that language, and the interpreters will interpret them into the other 5 languages. So that's pretty exciting. Uses the sub-conference rooms that Randy highlighted earlier, and that's a pretty exciting area for us.
Yeah, that's excellent. I was just going to say, too, that as far as sharing goes, okay, we had a little bit of a hiccup because the Google Hangouts on Air are brand new, and they just got rolled out to most people. In fact, they're not even rolled out to everybody yet. But as it happens, and as you know, David, we have about 40 world cities dial-up, local rate dial-up phone numbers where people could be talking to through ZipDX to this Hangout on Air. There have been maybe 20 people viewing this live. I mean, this is a very vertical topic, so you don't expect thousands of people. You know, we need cats and pianos for that. But the point is, had we wanted to do a public-facing live event, ZipDX plays a part, at least in our Hangouts every week. We have people calling in through Skype. Pretty soon it'll be WebRTC. It's obviously SIP for people who know what that is. There are web widgets. There's been Java widgets. There's been Tropo widgets. I mean, we are pretty bleeding edge on that with our partnership with Foxeo Labs. So all of these things connect to your great conference server, and we've talked about the fact that we've generally had between 30 and 60 people called into that, to ZipDX. ZipDX is currently being bridged into the Google Hangouts very simply by me and a mixer. I'd like to see a way to change that someday, because obviously when I dropped a few minutes ago, the audio disappeared on one end and that bridge broke. Also wanted to say, I meant to say this in the beginning, we've done conferences, ZipDX conferences, for 13 plus hours without it breaking or stopping or stuttering. And that's worth underlining, because there are many, many services, whether they're free or paid, where you're not going to do 13 hours straight. It's pretty amazing. So the real reliability is there. I have never... I'm an atypical user of ZipDX, so when I email you with a problem and you're back within 20 minutes, that may be exceptional. I don't know. I'll let you comment on that. But I'm sure that you are business-oriented and you must have great support as well.
Well, we try to give great support. We're a small company, so sometimes maybe we don't do as well as we should. But we're absolutely focused on reliability and high quality and professional service. Speaking just about this issue of bridging between a web platform and ZipDX, we do that with WebEx. We do that with Adobe Connect. There are specific facilities that those platforms have and that we have that work very reliably to do that job. And we have people using that every day, many times a day. Our customers try to get support requests turned around very quickly, because we know that our customers' meetings are of key importance to them. So I think most of our customers feel that we do a pretty good job. This is a paid service. ZipDX is a business, and it costs us money to do everything that we do, and so the types of customers that we seek are the ones that are aligned with that and basically want to pay what we think is a very, very good value-oriented price for a high-capability service.
And I should have mentioned, the pricing, people have asked me, I've talked to people who are doing talk shows and things like that, and the pricing is completely compatible with a small business. You don't have to be a huge enterprise or an oil company to afford it. I think it's ultimately very, very affordable. I think we've pretty much covered things. I'm going to ask one more time for questions. I keep getting kicked out of the Hangout, which cuts everything off, so we maybe won't continue this too much longer. Any questions on IRC, please type them in, or anybody on the Hangout. Andy or James or Jimmy's with us. Also, Mark.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Andy.
David, you've talked about your involvement in this being mainly from an audio perspective. You're obviously doing transcoding of between different audio codecs. Are you going to expand that to include video in some form? Is it going to move into the Google Hangout type market to a certain degree?
Well, so two different questions there that I'll answer, but a great lead in and a great way to wrap up. I said we're constantly doing new things, and certainly we are excited about video, and so that's something that we're pursuing. Again, we don't have expertise particularly in things like transcoding of H.248 streams and so on. So what we do is go out in the marketplace and work with partners and so on to get access to state-of-the-art technology there. But I think a lot of the other features that I talked about today we can bring to the video space. And it is tremendously frustrating to start a video conference call today, and so we think we can, I don't want to say fix that, but we can at least make some headway in taking what we've learned and demonstrated in the audio world and bringing it to the video world. So excited about that. I will tell you that for our current customer base, just the Google Hangout notion, our customers aren't hanging out anywhere. Our customers are very purpose-oriented in what they're doing. So our first focus in the video world is going to be to serve those kinds of needs where people have, business meetings that they are trying to conduct, and they need to have people get in on time, conduct their business, and get out. And so that's what we're striving to serve as we expand into that space.
That's normal, and that whole space is growing. I mean, I never thought that we would have any interest in video, and in the last year or two, see Michael's back in case he has anything he wants to conclude with. The last year or two, we tested video, which happens to be the technology that we're using right now on the Hangouts, as far as I know. We've talked to VidTel, we've talked to gosh, I wish I had the list in front of me, but Blue Gene Networks, we've tried everything that's ever come out as far as I know, including Tiny Chat and stuff like that at one time. Luck is typing, maybe he's going to type in the list for me.
VC.
VC, thank you. VC is a terrific platform, vsee.com, Milton Chen, and
we tried to talk to Life Size, but they proved intractable.
Well, they couldn't get their tractor started. That was the problem.
They were difficult.
Michael, have we missed anything? Because we should probably shut this down simply because there's no further need for the video, and unfortunately we weren't able to see David, and I'm sorry about that.
I'm sorry that I had to step away for a few minutes to take care of something, but so I don't quite know, but I think everybody here has knowledge of ZipDX, and I've been trying to get my employer to use them, but they've been mired in larger considerations than how we do conferencing. So
well, thank you for having me on here. It's great to be here as a guest as opposed to just a facilitator and a rabble-rouser. And certainly people are welcome to chat with me, contact me, dfrankel@zipdx.com if you want to talk about anything offline.
And just go take a look. There's very good documentation and frequently asked questions and so on the site. There's a user manual that you can look at as well, the user's guide.
And there's our cute little video.
Indeed. I don't think I've ever seen it, actually, but I know it's there. Maybe I should watch it. I'd know more about these features. ZipDX.com. And with that, we'll take it out for now to ask everybody to leave the Hangout afterwards, or it'll just be there as a zombie. Thanks to everybody who participated. Thanks to you, David, for all the support you've had over the last couple of years that you've provided for the VUC.
Well, you're very welcome. It's been great for us, great test bed for us, and we'll look forward to 3 more years at least.
Oh, at least. All right, great. Thanks, everybody.
Okay.
Thanks for joining us on the VoIP Users Conference, the VUC, or More Than Tell, every Friday, 12 noon Eastern Time.